Hello, dear friends. If we haven't met, my name is Megan, and this morning I wanted to show you my 2026 journal lineup. Now, a few weeks ago, I made a video about my journal ecosystem, kind of all of the notebooks that I have been working in as of late, but this year I have really felt the pull toward simplicity. I don't want to be spending my mental energy on figuring out what information goes in what book and where everything is kept, what I need to take with me, what I don't. So I've decided that I really want to pare down what I'm actively working in. So what these 3 books are going to hold for me sort of boils down to planning, documenting, and doing. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that means. So the first part of this is planning. This is my day planner for 2026. It's the Hobonichi Weeks. And truly, I'm not trying to be fancy at all in this. Basically, what my week looks like is we've got the daily divided sections, and each day I just go in and put in my to-do list. You know, what do I really want to get done that day? It's not divided into work versus personal tasks. It's not time blocked. It's not anything fancy, just a to-do list. And I've found that has really been the best way to get me to accomplish the things that I've set out to do in a week, is to just dump everything that needs done. You know, if I do my work tasks first and my personal tasks second, obviously that's a benefit of working from home and being self-employed, but it really has helped to just set goals for what's happening today. Some days might be more work heavy, some days might not. I don't have to think about pulling out multiple planners, pulling out multiple calendars to figure out what my day looks like. Everything is just here. I know what's going on. So I've got my to-do list in this column. And then you'll see that this planner sort of has these little dots to divide the days into different sections. And I use this final column as an event or appointment sort of documentation. So anything that I really need to remember, like the day plans are going to have to work around it, or I have to be somewhere at a certain time, got dinner dates, D&D scheduling, rental car pickup, that kind of thing, all ends up in that column. And then this whole right-hand page is free for just notes, jotting things down as they come up. The first couple of weeks in this, I was putting my grocery list in here, but I was finding it a bit difficult to be handling both my phone and my planner when I'm at the store, and then organizing my grocery list into what aisle everything's in. It ended up getting a bit messy. So I don't know that I'll keep doing that, but I keep my meal plan in here. I'm starting to keep a running to-do list, just sort of things to keep in mind that are on the back burner or that I want to accomplish soon, so that, you know, if I copy it down every week onto this page, eventually I'll get tired of copying the thing down, is my hope, and I'll go, okay, I just need to put this into my to-do list. So, for example, I've been working through scanning my old photo albums. So if I am getting tired of writing down scanned photos every single week, I'll go, okay, you know what? Let me just pop this in on Friday. Friday night, I'm going to scan all the photos and then I'm done. Or I still need to take down the Christmas decorations. Or I have a children's book that I still need to finish my draft of. So that is just a holding space and sort of noting down that, hey, these things aren't on my to-do list yet, because, you know, if it's not, like if it's Wednesday, I'm looking at my Wednesday. I'm looking at my to-do list. I'm not looking at the 5 billion other things that I could be doing, because all of those things are floating around in my head constantly, right? So I can get them onto paper. I know that they have somewhere to live. I don't have to keep this tab open in the back of my head like, oh my gosh, I have to keep working on this. I have to make sure I get this draft written. I have to make sure I take down the tree. I have it written down somewhere, and when I'm ready, I can migrate it over to a daily task, an accomplishable individual task, not just a looming get this project done sort of thing. So that's kind of how that's working. I'm still feeling it out since I'm only a few weeks in. I also have random sticky notes for just if I wrote myself a note sometime throughout the week, I'll put it in here just for safekeeping. Just as simple of a planning system as I can possibly keep. Because last year I had my planner and my journal combined into one book for a good portion of the year. And in theory, that's simpler, right? You know, you're keeping everything condensed down into one book. But I don't know, something about it did not click with my brain quite as well as this. In my mind, journaling and planning, you know, they're cousins, but they're not the same. So having my to-do list in the same place where I was trying to document my life felt a little unnatural. So I'm really enjoying the simplicity of just this book is my to-do list. It's got all my plans. It's got everything going on in my head. And I don't have to think about it. I just grab it to go, okay, what do I need to do today? And in the back of this book, there are also tons and tons of blank pages. And I started using them. I started with a thrift list because I always, whenever I'm at the thrift store, I'm like not looking for anything in particular when like I know that I've been looking for a new long skirt or linen pants or whatever. So this is just a little reminder to go look in certain sections. And this is something that I've kept in my phone notes till now, just because I know I always have my phone with me. And I was starting to try and migrate sort of my phone notes into this and keeping this with me all the time. We'll see. I liked having it with me, but it did kind of just add bulk to my purse, which is the opposite of simplicity when, you know, my phone works for me. I don't get distracted by scrolling so much when I'm out and about doing errands and stuff. So we'll see. I might just end up using these blank pages as sort of scratch notes, especially if I have some overflow from these pages. I haven't run into that problem yet, though. This is kind of a great size space for 1 week's worth of brain dump for me. So I'll keep you updated on sort of how this system continues and evolves throughout the year, especially since this is my first time using it. But so far, I'm really happy with this. I'm really happy with being able to see my whole week just in one go, on one spread. This has been really nice. So this book truly is just how I am planning my life, how I am setting intentions for a week, how I am keeping myself accountable and getting things done, which means I need a separate book. Well, need might be a strong word, but I need a separate book for documenting my life because keeping a journal has been a big part of what I keep notebooks for, is to keep a diary of what I'm spending my time doing and how I felt during any given season of my life. I have spent the better part of my life documenting my days, sometimes consistently, sometimes less so, in some sort of notebook, writing about usually just the events of the day, but especially in my more like angsty teen years, a lot about how I felt, trying to make sense of what I thought about things, people, events, just sort of the state of the world and becoming an adult. And I'm so glad that I have those to look back on because sometimes I go back and read things and being more removed from a situation, I can see more clearly what might have been going on or just have the memory of, oh my gosh, yeah, that's what it was like to live that season of my life. And I do other documenting here. Let me show you real quick. For about the same amount of time, I have also kept a scrapbook. And that has evolved over the years too. I have lots of plans to go over my scrapbooking system over the next year because I have a lot to talk about here too. But these have served as an overview of my year, especially the highlights of a year, for I think 14 years now. That's a little crazy to say, but I have many years of my life now documented in a way that I can just flip through it, maybe even show friends what I've been up to, because it's a very display-focused medium. It's mostly by pictures with maybe a little summary of what was going on during the time. And I would actually say this has been my favorite way of documenting over the years, the one that I revisit the most. But there's something about my journals when I go back and read them that can put me in the moment in a way that sometimes pictures just can't. So even though sometimes I'm very tired, I don't feel like there's anything exciting going on in my life, I still try to push myself to keep some sort of journal. So this year's journal is another Hobonichi Weeks. And I picked this because I am sort of going through a journaling slump. And so instead of feeling the need to fill up a full page every day, I'm using these daily little slots to just put the highlights or the important bits of the day into. And then I have this right-hand page to dive a little deeper into something, whether that's an event from the week or just how I've been feeling lately. And also to assist with this bit of a journaling slump for a season of life where mostly I am just hanging out at home and working on projects, I have really dived into adding little bits of decoration. For most of my journaling history, I have just, been putting words down on paper, which is also great, just for a different season. But lately I've been enjoying keeping little bits of ephemera from what would otherwise be garbage and putting stickers and washi and just something to bring some color to the page, something to make it more exciting. I don't know, something to draw me to sit down with the page and be able to express myself with something more than just my words. And as you'll see, I've been using my calendar pages as well to just have a little summary of the day. Thought that would just be a fun little project. I'm not doing any trackers or anything. Again, I'm trying to go for simplicity, and I love the idea of trackers, but I'm not going to remember them. So you can see the difference between my planner calendar pages versus my journal calendar pages. Same book format, but look at the difference. This is my quick reference, easy to look at and check my schedule book, whereas this is more for play and expression. So yeah, we've got our calendar pages at the beginning, our weekly pages in the middle, and then toward the end of the book, we have our blank note pages again. And these I have started to use as additional journaling that maybe didn't quite fit with the week that I was in, or I had a bit extra to say. I wanted to do some collaging, and it's also been a place for me to keep some journaling that's more private, because I started sharing my journals on social media last year, which has been so fun, and I love doing so. But I did feel like I was holding back some of my more private thoughts because every page was available for public consumption. I hope that you guys aren't necessarily reading through all of my journal entries. That's never been the intention, but still there were things that were so private. I didn't want the whole world to see. So I was like, well, if somebody does read this, then they're going to have a lot more information than maybe I want everyone to have. So these back pages have been a great spot for me to just do some private journaling so that when I do show you guys a flip through on YouTube or post pictures, I can choose which pages get shown. So I have been really enjoying that as well. So this really is just a mix of various different creative expressions for the purpose of being able to look back in the future and see what life was like at that time. So we have our planning, we have our documenting, and then the final book is going to be for doing. And let me explain what that means, because that's such a broad word. I have been keeping this particular notebook since I think like 2019. It is so full of random poetry, projects I've been working on, goals for social media, to-do lists, website sketches, just all sorts of random work, random stuff that I wanted to clear my head about in a very not pretty setting. And if you did watch my most recent journaling ecosystem video, you will probably recall several additional notebooks that had their own distinct purposes, but they really were all just to the same end of creative projects or mapping something out so it's out of my head. And I've been really enamored recently with the idea of simplifying so much that everything else just ends up in one book, so that I don't have to think about, okay, I've come up with this new project idea. Do I sketch it out in the project book, or do I write it in my composition book? Where do I put this? The main reason I haven't necessarily kept everything in one book in the past, I think, is because of ease of reference. So if I'm taking notes on a particular topic and I want to go back and reference, like, okay, what's everything that I have learned and gathered about said topic? It's really nice to be able to reference a single book, because I do like to dig through these. And something that happens if I fill these up too fast is maybe I wasn't done processing a certain page, and so now I feel very spread out. I have, ideas for one project in this book, but then the next book has all of the updates for that project. I think I'm overthinking it, is what it comes down to. I like to be able to reference things pretty easily, but then again, a lot of this is to just get things out of my head. Or say, for example, I had started on a poem, but I wasn't quite sure how to finish it up. Because I've been working in this book for like 7 years now, I know if I need to go back and find, that poem, I think it had potential and I didn't finish it. Or maybe I even forgot that I wrote the thing, and I'm flipping back through and I go, oh my gosh, I never finished that. I can go back and finish it instead of it getting buried in years and years of books that I've finished, or quote unquote finished. So those are just some of my hesitations with this, but I want to experiment with it. I want to see what it would look like to keep everything that I'm actively working on or thinking through in one book, just to see what happens. And I wouldn't say that I was putting that much thought into which notebook to pick. I mostly just pick up whatever feels right for whatever's on my mind, but I don't know, I feel like it could just be simpler. And I have to say, you guys have no idea how much self-control it took to not buy a new notebook just for this. I had this vision of how lovely a beautiful plain black moleskin journal would be. A notebook that a real artist would use. But I really don't need that. I have like 4 notebooks that I still need to finish. And my thought is I can reward myself for finishing up some of these books by getting started in this Hobonichi graph paper book that I got for Christmas. I think it's so cute. What does it say? This is Finnish. I'd have to look it up again, but it says something like, write anything you want, or write everything down, or something to that effect. But that, I think, since I do have this book, instead of going out and buying the fancy moleskin, I can use this as a holding place. Especially, I love the graph, because I feel like that'll be so good for both writing and sketching something out, whether it's, a mind map or a sketch. I would love to get back into drawing in this book instead of feeling like I need to pull out a fancy sketchbook. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This is my later treat if I can stick to this system that I'm outlining right now. So this is my doing book. And what I mean by that is just my creative writing, my brainstorming, taking notes on other books, anything that is not just for documentation and anything that's not for productivity. This is just a holding place for all my thoughts and ideas as they come up. And that wraps up what I hope will be my 2026 system. Please do let me know if you have any questions about how I'm using these books, because I tried to keep the video as simple as possible, but I know I was flipping around a little bit, and I know some of the particulars could be a little bit confusing if you're, looking at this system from the outside, but I really tried to keep it as simple as possible. Thank you so much for hanging out with me as I flip through all of these books. Hopefully you could gain a little bit of inspiration from at least one of these books and how you're integrating it into your system. But I would love to hear what your system for the year is, whether you're leaning more on the simplicity of fewer books or possibly feeling like it's simpler to have individual books for every purpose. I'd love to know. I'd love to know your thoughts on how you kind of keep your system from overwhelming you, because that's sort of what I'm looking at right now. I have so enjoyed chatting with you this morning, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.